The Dallas Cowboys, along with owner Jerry Jones, taking a knee before the national anthem last night in a show of solidarity. Then they would stand up for the national anthem. This comes after more than 200 players took a knee on Sunday during the performance. By the way, the Cardinals stood the whole time. Here to react is legendary former football coach with multiple colleges and, of course, the New York Jets and the NFL, Lou Holtz. First off, Coach, how do you feel about the president weighing in on this?
Well, I think that, let me make sure I understand this right. 200 NFL players making millions of dollars, takes a knee, disrespects the flag, and the president, the leader of this country, doesn't have the right to say, I think that's wrong. This is a workplace environment, and he has the right to fire people. He has a right to about a philosophy.
Coach, the players say it's about race. Racial injustice in the country. It started with Colin Kaepernick, and now it's gotten bigger. And they say they love the flag, they love the anthem. They want to make a point.
I think there's other ways to make the point. I believe that they love this country. I've been to Korea. I was in Korea in June. I've been to Afghanistan. I've been to Iraq. See the sacrifices that the soldiers made so that you can have a freedom. And the freedom of this country is a freedom to make good choices. People are making bad choices and somebody else has to be held responsible for it. That's not what this country is all about. I know that an awful lot of NFL players and coaches have visited our troops overseas. But the most important thing, if you're going to win, you have to have a solid locker room. In college, you got them in the classroom, you got them in study hall, they're in the dorm. Whereas in the NFL, the only time they're together is in that locker room. If you do not have unity in the locker room, you do not have a chance to win. That's why you see so many people trying to come together and show unity, is to be able to have a togetherness to win.
So, Coach, get me out of this. If you're the NFL, how do you get out of this? There's nobody winning here.
Well, I'll tell you this. Number one, I don't believe that I would say to our football team, we will not use our football team for any personal cause. We'll not use it to promote abortion or anything else. You want to do that as an individual? I'm all for you. I'll support you. But you will not bring that onto the team. I feel the same thing about the NFL. This is about the ability to win. And here's what I would say. I wish that President Trump would put me in charge of getting the athletes to going into the inner city high school. You have 32 different cities. Go into the NFL and talk to the young people about making good choices. You're in the NFL because you made good choices, because you worked hard, you developed your skills and talent, you didn't join a gang. It's all about making choices. There's thousands of words in the English vocabulary, and the most important word by far is choice, and we've gotten away from it. Somebody makes a bad choice, it's somebody else's fault. That's not what this country's about.
If your players tell you, I'm doing this, Coach, and you say you're not, you're going to have a team that help anything. What do you do?
Okay, here's the problem. See, we have a problem in the NFL. We don't have a disagreement. Brian, if that player wants to win, for example, he's upset because we're not throwing the ball enough, I want to run the ball. We have a difference of opinion because we have the same goal to win. You're on that football team, I want to win, and you want to promote a cause. That's a problem because we have different objectives. You join the team. It all comes together. We have one common cause, and that's where we're getting away from what it is. That's why the coaches and the owners and everybody else sees this happening, and they know they can't win if everybody has a different objective for being on the team.
Coach, it's not fair. You're not only a great football coach, you're a great communicator. You shouldn't be that good at two things. Thanks so much for joining me, and I got to talk to you again as this thing unfolds. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to be with you.
All right. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, Laura Ingraham weighs in and gets ready for her show that starts October 30th. Don't miss a minute of Fox and Friends. You never know who's next.
Dad, I'm not saying...
The taxes.
It's for the government to choose.
Whose family?
Ryan, please.
It's all about FaceTime. Yeah. Hey, let's bring in right now the newest member of the Fox News family. Laura Ingraham has got a brand new show. It's going to be starting at the end of October, The Ingraham Angle. And Laura joins us tonight. Laura, good morning to you.
Good morning. Early trick or treat, guys. How are you?
Yeah. Right. Laura, we're wearing you out before your show. You were on Hannity last night live. Then we get you up again. Do we have a cot in the makeup room?
Actually, yes. It's actually fun. In pajama parties, we have a good time. So all the makeup artists, they're great people. So we're good friends.
We just play the John Cougar Mellencamp and have Laura as a guest. That's all we do. Plus, we're talking a lot about the whole national anthem, whether or not to stand. Last night, I don't know if you saw, you probably did, with the Cowboys, America's team, they all took a knee. and they all got booed before the national anthem, but then afterwards, when they brought out the flags, they did stand for the national anthem.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, Jerry Jones back in August said he disagreed with this whole anthem protest, and he was right when he said that. I think he was trying to strike a balance with supporting the NFL as a whole and supporting the country and the flag. I've met him a few times. He's extremely patriotic, loves the troops, does a lot for the troops. So I think, Jerry Jones himself meant no disrespect. But I will say that I think this entire exercise of the taking a knee has grown so tedious. And I think most folks watching these games, to the extent that people are still watching, because I think a lot of people are annoyed by this, it's not about the players. It's not about us or the media in general or the NFL. This is a civic tradition that we encourage all Americans to participate in, because it precisely stands not for an individual, not for President Trump. It doesn't apply to a particular policy or an administration or a Supreme Court decision or a police brutality investigation. Mm-hmm. The anthem applies to the country as a whole. And if you do not stand for the national anthem, most Americans, I believe, truly believe, think you're disrespecting the country. So you might despise the president, you might hate everything he does, you have a right to do that. But that civic tradition is important as a type of glue that holds our society together. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Indivisible. Now, what makes us indivisible? Our freedom, our liberty, but the civic tradition that we encourage our children, we teach our children, I hope, as they grow older at games and public events. You stand, you take your hat off, you put your hand over your heart, and if you can sing, sing it. It's an honor. And I think most people believe these players should just be grateful that they're paid millions of dollars to play a game, as our men and women in uniform keep them safe at night. So I love seeing the veterans who are on these teams speak out. And I think they're skating on thin ice here, the NFL, and I think they're already paying a price, and the price will grow steeper with less attendance as time goes on.
How do you get? My main thing is, how do you get out of this? And do you think the president should have weighed in on this?
You could make the argument that you elevate people like Kaepernick and the other anthem kneelers by even engaging. I kind of think with someone like Steph Curry, I'd say, look, I actually like Steph Curry. I think he's an amazing player. Love to have him at the White House. Love to meet him, but it's his prerogative. Mm-hmm. Welcome all champions to the White House. It's amazing to reach that level of athletic achievement. We look forward to meeting all the champions. They don't come, sorry, maybe next time. I actually think that makes the president seem bigger and the protests seem smaller. However, I understand his frustration, and he speaks from the gut on these things, and that's a gut check for America.
Sure.
I do think he's speaking for a lot of Americans when he said we're tired of this. But you also elevate the protests a little bit in a way that maybe he might not have done, but I think I could go either way on it.
Sure. Well, but between the president and the protesters, so are the fans, and we were running a little video earlier of all these fans who are destroying their memorabilia because they just feel like the teams and the players and the NFL have let them down.
No, it doesn't surprise me. Meanwhile, Villanueva's shirt is the #1 selling jersey in the NFL. Of course, Army Ranger who defies the Steelers and is an individual. These guys all claim we're individuals. We're speaking our mind. And meanwhile, he goes out there, and the coach says, "Oh well, no, we have to be unified on this. You can't go out there." He says, "Oh really?"
And then
yesterday, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, yesterday had a presser, and he apologized for doing that. So
great to see you.
Great to see you.
All right, Jillian has a Fox News alert for us this morning. That's right. Good morning to you at home as well. This is a story we've been following all morning, and it's breaking overnight. A police officer shot in the face after a routine call turned violent. Officer Kayla Mayer ambushed by suspects with an assault rifle as she investigated a suspicious vehicle outside New York City.
Can you please get some news here? Armored truck or something to come get this officer out. She shot in the face. We're right behind the suspect. We're pinned down. We can't move. You know what, Kaylee? Doing fine. It's just a quick shot right here. That's perfectly fine. Not that bad. Probably should be okay.
Both suspects are in custody. Officer Mayer is expected to survive.
Minutes after the hour, as the 2017 NFL season is well underway, now into week 4, an open letter to Commissioner Roger Goodell, written by a retired Marine colonel back in 2016, is resurfacing. It's addressing the anthem protests that are on social media today and are the #1 story on most news channels like this one.
That letter was written a year ago. Turns out, though, not much has changed. That letter stating, quote, many friends, Marines, and Special Forces soldiers who worked with or for me through or fought with me through the years returned home with the American flag draped over their coffins. Now I watch multi-millionaire athletes who never did anything in their lives but play a game, respect or disrespect what brave Americans fought and died for.
That's an excerpt from his letter. Joining us right now is the man behind the letter, retired United States Colonel Jeffrey Powers, a huge Giant fan. You date all the way back to the Yale Bowl when the Giants were getting a new stadium and they had no place to play. Colonel, are you surprised we got to this point?
Yeah, I am surprised. And you said huge Giant fan. That's past history now, Brian. No longer a Giant fan. No longer a fan of the NFL. Fed up with it, actually.
Why?
It's out of control, and they're spitting on the graves of our fallen. And look, today you just announced some police officer got shot in the face. There's cops lining up right now as we speak throughout the country for roll call. They don't know when they're going out there, what's going to happen to them, if they'll get home to their families or not. But they're the bad guys, you know. And overseas you have, I know probably right now up in Afghanistan and Syria and Iraq, you got guys with rucksacks weighing 100, 120 pounds, high altitude, day in, day out, maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th deployment. They come back, if they come back at all, if they come back alive. But, you know, these guys don't care. It's all about them. You know, that's all it is.
Colonel, tell us the story about your friend, Sergeant Garrett Mongrella, and your last conversation with him.
Yeah, we were during Desert Shield working up for Desert Storm. We were in Saudi Arabia training. And I used to go visit the guys out there in the companies, and you know, they want to talk about football. And of course, he was a Jersey guy like me, and we're doing the Jersey routine with each other. And he's a Giant fan, and you know, this football thing brought everybody together. And in the core, everybody's green. Some guys are dark green, light green, whatever. But they'll all die for each other. But there's none of this racism and everybody accusing everybody of everything else. And they're all tight, but it was kind of fun with the football teams, where you're from, and kind of brought everything together. Well, Garrett never got to see that Super Bowl that the Giants played in. And him and 13 other Marines from our task force came back with flags, but flags draped over their caskets. You know, and it just...
That was the anthem that the New York Giants won. And Whitney Houston sang the national anthem, arguably the greatest national anthem, especially because we're at war at the time, that's been sung before a game. But in the big picture, they would say, and this, I've been seeing so many players right now interviewed, Colonel, they're saying that they're not disrespecting the country, they love the country, they're just trying to send a message. Do you buy that?
I don't buy that at all. You know, you can't, you know, I heard you asking before, can you kneel and still support the truth? No. You kneel, you're spitting on them. That's what they all think. There's thousands of Americans out there. They're fed up. They're up to here, you know. And to the point now, say, yeah, you want to dance, dance. You want to kneel. Do a break dance for all we care. Dance with each other in the end zone. We'll call it dancing with the morons from now on. Have your team go hide in your little safe space in your tunnel, and hide there until it's safe to come out when the national anthem's. It's disgusting. It's pathetic. Wow. And one Lone Ranger comes out, and I applaud him for that. But it's really pathetic, and Roger Goodell is not a leader. He's allowed this thing to permeate, and they're going to go down. People go, I'll call you right now, boycott these people. See this here? High-tech weapon. It's called a remote control.
Right.
Bang. Yeah.
Colonel,
cut them off.
Thank you very much, Colonel. Appreciate your time. Thanks for your service.
Thank you. Thanks for your service, yeah.
The Cowboys players wanted to show unity, but they were very adamant about wanting to separate that message from the national anthem. Sean?
All right, Lisa, and as they take a knee collectively, boos can be heard from this sellout crowd in Arizona.
And that's how it went down last night with America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody took a knee. There were a lot of boos, but that was before the national anthem. And then they all stood up, locked arms, and watch the national anthem play out. Is that a good prototype for where we go from here? Continuing now with our live town hall panel. We've got a dozen people from all walks of life joining us right now. Let me ask you this, a series of questions, show of hands. According to the NFL Game Operations Manual, all players must be on the sidelines for the national anthem. They've got to be standing up. They've got to be looking in the direction of the flag and whoever is singing. If you don't, you're subject to a fine. Who thinks going forward, if people don't do that, they should be fined in the NFL? Who thinks they should be fined? Deneen, you're right behind her. What do you think?
This whole issue could have been avoided. You just mentioned the conduct code that the NFL has. Roger Goodell has failed the NFL, has failed the consumers who spend thousands of dollars to buy tickets, to seat licenses, to go to the games and have fun. What they're going to realize, Roger Goodell, the owners, the players, the coaches, they need us. We don't need them. So we'll see what will happen as this continues. But if they continue this, there's a Fox and Friends poll. 94% of Americans are opposed of what the NFL is doing.
There's an important way in the way you started this segment. You mentioned the rules that your employer has set.
Right.
And the professor just said, well, there's a bigger issue than those rules if you choose not to follow them. They're actually protesting where this started, the police claiming they didn't follow the rules. So who gets to choose which set of rules you get to follow? The police have to follow the rules. That's what they're calling for. But she's saying that the NFL players don't have to follow the rules. Your employer sets them. I work for Fox. Fox has rules. If I don't follow them, Fox can fire me.
Absolutely. And to keep in mind, one thing about the Dallas Cowboys is the fact that it was within the last year where they actually asked the NFL to honor our fallen policemen who were ambushed by that guy down in Dallas. We want to wear a little emblem. And the NFL said no. So, you know, they followed that.
That's the main problem, is that there is no consistency in their policy regarding this. The
NFL has made this worse.
Look, I think President spoke to
right back here, Burgess.
I'd love to put this in context, guys. I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, segregated South, Jim Crow. And a lot of
played in the NFL, Burgess.
I played in the NFL. A lot of people don't realize that through the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the black community, with all that stuff, led our country in the growth of our middle class. We led our country in terms of men committed to marriage. We led our country in terms of the percentage of entrepreneurs. We were doing the things we needed to do because we believed in that flag. And I remember in 7th grade, walking to school early, putting the flag up and bringing it down, and knowing that if it ever touched the ground, it would be desecrated. Because I had a dad who taught me to be proud of that flag. And every defeat I've gone through life, I've always said, in this country, I can get back up again. This is one place I can do it again.
Right here in the front row, also from the NFL, Chris Valletta.
You know, thank God we live in this country, because there was a woman who was publicly executed in North Korea, and her crime was watching a Hollywood movie. Okay, that's the reality, and thank God we don't have those issues in this country, and by God's grace, we never will. I think what's important to remember is that the national anthem is representing the fact that we live in this type of country. That moment, those seconds, however long it takes to sing that anthem, is the time when all of us should stand shoulder to shoulder, hand on heart, and proclaiming the fact that we live in a free society that affords us the right to protest whatever we want. And I happen to agree. I happen to feel that the protests are valid. They are, as I said, just misguided. You have to do it elsewhere. The anthem is not the place to do it. And Steve, I agree. I think the NFL is all disjointed here in terms of them not creating policies and rules.
Well, let's not talk about the NFL. Let's talk about the NHL, National Hockey League, for a moment. There was a coach who came out last year and said, anybody who's going to sit for the national anthem is going to sit for the whole game. Who thinks the NFL could take a lesson from the NHL?
Let's go Rangers.
You know, at the end of the day, the consumers are going to vote with their wallets. They're not going to go to games. They're not going to purchase products. Right. But advertisers are going to vote with tens of millions of dollars. When we start moving money out of the advertising arena and we start making our own statement on the impact of the lack of patriotism here in the NFL or NHL.
Right next to you. All right. So, I mean, we're all together on this.
He said
go ahead.
that you should be fired. Look,
That's
you're
not
wait,
all.
hang on 1 second. Hold on.
He did at the end.
If you're an
He said,
employee, I
"You're
made this
fired."
comment earlier. If you go into a Starbucks and right before you order your latte, the person behind the counter starts to spat off their political opinions and views, they could be subject to termination. You're an employee of a business. I played in the NFL. Believe me, they make it clear that you're an employee.
Right.
You should be subject to rules.
You know,
the rules are gray, and that's the problem.
The thing
right now.
about the protests on Sunday, which so many people lost this, was the fact that Sunday was National Gold Star Mother Day. And one Gold Star mother was in attendance. And Sean, I think you know this story. You're nodding your head. And she saw somebody taking a knee, and she took a breath, and she goes, they're protesting the flag. The same flag that my son came back in a coffin in.
By the way, there's a lack of understanding of history, and I want to give everyone watching an example. In the game in the UK, the NFL players stood for God Save the Queen. British colonial adventurism and slavery under British colonies was the biggest, call it, beneficiary of that. Then they knelt, or they didn't stand for the country that reversed the course of racism, the United States of America. Yep. Learn your history is my point. Understand the context of what you're protesting.
President Trump continues his march against the NFL. Monday Night Football, the Dallas Cowboys taking a knee briefly before the anthem, including the owner, Jerry Jones, and then they stood for the anthem in the end zone. Here's what the president sent out a short time ago. The NFL has all sorts of rules and regulations. The only way out for them is to set a rule that you can't kneel during our national anthem, end quote.
Exactly.
Katie, is he on the right side or the wrong side of this issue,
He's absolutely on the right side, and he's on the side of the majority of Americans in this country. And look, the NFL ultimately is going to have to make a business decision here. Polling across the board, whether it's Quinnipiac, J.D. Power, Rasmussen, shows that the majority of Americans disapprove of athletes kneeling or refusing to stand for the national anthem in disrespect for the flag. The number one reason, according to J.D. Power, why fans tuned out of games last year was a result of these protests. So we're talking money here, and a brand new poll this week shows that 34% of Americans are less likely to watch games now as a result of all of these athletes kneeling. So it's pretty simple. The NFL, as the president says, has all kinds of regulations and rules about what you can wear in your uniform, what you can do in the end zone. The NBA has a standard of you standing for the national anthem. If you don't want to, that's fine, but you pay a fine for it. They're going to have to make a decision ultimately on this.
These owners pay a commissioner a lot of money. I think Roger Goodell may be making $50 million a year now. Mark Thiessen, Washington Post, on screen for our viewers. The NFL's game operations manual says that, quote, all players must be on the sideline for the national anthem and must stand at attention, face the flag, hold helmets in their left hand, and refrain from talking or face discipline such as fines, suspensions, and or forfeiture of draft choices. He continues. The league regularly penalizes players for dancing in the end zone, but it allows players to violate the rules regarding the national anthem with impunity.
Some of the other issues that are happening in this
country. I think they're changing already, Adrian. You hear what happened yesterday and developed. I'll give you a situation in Pittsburgh, right? Villanueva, the Army Ranger, and he's the one who stood in the tunnel or outside the tunnel with his hand over his heart. His quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, reversed himself entirely yesterday. Roethlisberger said this: the idea is to be unified as a team when so much attention is paid to things dividing our country. But I wish we approached it differently. I personally don't believe the anthem is ever the time to make any type of protest. For me and many others on my team and around the league, it is a tribute to those who commit to serve and protect our country, current and past, especially the ones that made the ultimate sacrifice. That's an about-face within 24 hours. Right. He says they screwed up and did it wrong, Adrian.
They did. People have not been subject to police brutality. That is absurd to say. That is a ridiculous notion.
Here's what I think, ladies. The fact that the league has not taken control of this, they have managed to put coaches and players all over the country in a very difficult position. And that's what you find from all pros like Roethlisberger in that statement.
Well, this is not difficult, Bill.
Now you've got...
Look, people have the freedom to do what they want to do.
Hang on. You've got an Army Ranger who did 3 tours overseas, who stood before the national anthem by himself, left his team behind after they had reached an agreement on Saturday afternoon. Now you've got this veteran of the U.S. military reversing himself in confusion when he said this yesterday. Watch.
And every single time, you know, I see that picture of me standing by myself, I feel embarrassed to a degree because, again, like I said, unintentionally, I left my teammates behind. It wasn't me stepping forward. I never planned to boycott the plan that the Steelers came up with. I just thought that there would be some middle ground where I could stay in the tunnel, nobody would see me, and then afterwards, I just wouldn't talk to the media like I do all the time.
They have put these men in a really tough spot. Katie,
First of all, Villanueva was the only one who was following the NFL rule book by going out, holding his helmet to his side, putting his hand over his heart, and standing there without speaking in respect for his country and the national anthem, the American flag, and those who have died, to give him and the players in the locker room who are being cowardly the right to protest however they please.
Okay.
He was the one following the rules, and the reason he's reversing himself is because his coach, who was also a coward, came out publicly to berate a veteran for daring to stand alone on the sideline to respect his country.
Okay.
If that's where we are, we're in real trouble.
Let's figure out how the league figures its way out. Adrian, thank you. Katie, thanks to you as well. I'm out of time, but thank you for yours today. You bet. Shannon, what's next?
Well, a desperate situation unfolding in Puerto Rico.